Ladies and gentlemen, it's the comedian.
Mushy Diane, Mrs. Gilda Meir, and Abba Eben, all the three big noises in Israel, decided to go on a 4-month Mediterranean cruise. So they're cruising about the Mediterranean all over the world. At the end of 4 months, the steward who'd looked after them was standing at the bottom of the boat, you see, and Gilda Meir walked out, you see, and he says, thank you very much, sir, madam. Sir, madam. Thank you very much, Mrs. President, Premier, or whatever you are. Put his hand out, and she shook his hand, didn't give him a tip. Abba Eban come down. Thank you, Mrs. Sir, what your name is, Eban. How do you do? Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed nothing. Mushy Diane comes down. And he says, thank you very much, Mr. O'Dyan, for the very nice journey you've had, and thank you very much. Nothing. But Mushy Diane says, when you come to Israel, it's the accent that counts. When you come to Israel, he said, he says, when you come to Israel, he says, now, we'll look after you when you're in Israel. So, 2 years later, he sails into Tel Aviv, and there waiting at the bottom of the gangplank is Mushy Diane, and he hands him an envelope, and he opens it up. From Abba Eban, Gilda Meir, and Mushy Diane, thank you for your wonderful treatment on that voyage we had 2 years ago. Enclosed 5, fined £500. She said, Mr. Diane, he didn't beat the Arabs. You frightened him to death.
I don't know. 2 little boys playing football in Bradford. One was a Pakistani boy and the other one was a little Yorkshire boy, and they're heading the ball having a game of football on the street, just like any ordinary kids. And all of a sudden, the little Pakistani's mother opened the window and she shouted, the little Yorkshire boy said to the Pakistani boy, what does the mother want, lad? Pakistani boy said, I don't know, I think my dinner's ready.
I've taken the wife to Blackpool with me for the summer. You always pack something you don't need, don't you? I'll never forget before we were married, I having tea at their house, and she said, won't it be lovely, when we're married, I'll be able to share all your worries and all your troubles. I said, I haven't got any worries and I haven't got any troubles. And her dad said, you will have if you marry her. And it's true. I said to her, when the summer's finished, the season, I said, we'll go to Spain for a week's holiday. She said, we're not going there, the food wouldn't agree with me. I said, what are you talking about? She said, the food, it'll disagree with me. I said, it wouldn't dare. Any ladies, I'm not having a go at you girls, because I'm on your side. I was in a working men's club last Sunday, and I was talking to the concert secretary through his interpreter. And I said, this idea of working men's clubs is all wrong. I said, there should be clubs for ladies now. Big wooden ones with a nail in the end. It's funny in the olden days, isn't it? If a fella fancied a girl, he used to hit her with a club. Nowadays, he puts her in one.
They're all doing these Jewish jokes. They're all and I'm not Jewish. How about the Jewish fella, that many gold teeth, used to sleep with his head in the safe? Fellow walking in the antique shop, he said, excuse me, how much is that Jewish idol worth in the corner? She said, Jewish idol? She said, it's thousands, it's the manager. This lobster fell in love with a crab. And they went home and said, Mum, I'm in love with a crab. She said, you can't marry a crab. For generations, crabs have walked sideways and lobsters have walked straight. If you marry a crab, you'll louse up. Generations of lobsters and crabs. So she's broken-hearted. And next morning, she's walking on the beach, and there she sees her beloved crab walking towards her straight as a die. Straight! And she runs over and says, you do love me. You're walking straight. He said, yeah, and I don't care who knows it.
drunk about stone out of his head every day, shouting, "Moon river, wider than a mile." Yeah, the vicar saw me say, "That's terrible. You as drunk as that." He said, "I can't help it. I just like me drink, a good pub. Have a couple of pints and it just leads on to a cup of whiskey. I just get drunk, I enjoy it." He said, "The next day you were passing a pub, you stand in front of the pub and you stand there like that and you breathe in and you say, 'Get thee behind me, Satan.'" He said, "I do." "Get thee behind me, Satan." That's what you do, he said. Met him 2 days later, stone out of his head. He said, "Did you do that?" He said, "Yes." "I walked past the pub and I stood in front of the tap room door and I went, 'Satan, get thee behind me.' And he did, and he shoved me straight through the door."
There was this fellow went to this tartan shop in Edinburgh. He said to the fellow behind the counter, "I want to buy 7 yards of Dunlop tartan." The fellow says, "There's no such tartan as Dunlop." He was Welsh. He said, "I want 7 yards of Dunlop tartan, I'll pay cash." He said, "There's no such tartan as Dunlop." He said, "I want 7 yards of Dunlop tartan, cash." The man said, "Just a minute." And he got this big bolt of tartan down, measured 7 yards, and said, "There you are." He said, "Thank you very much." And he went away happy. The assistant said, "That wasn't Dunlop tartan. That was McIntyre." He said, "Well, Dunlops have been McIntyres for years." Daft, isn't it?
Millionaire walks into this post office. He sees this old couple at the pension box. Railings, pension books, dip your breath, they're there. Put it in there. The millionaire looked at him, and there they were, a long overcoat button. Oh, he thought, oh. And he went to the fella, he said, "Get yourselves in that taxi, the pair of you, out there, get down to the London Hilton, have a month on me. Off you go." So they go down to the Hilton, you see, and a month later, the millionaire rings the Hilton. He said, "Could I speak to..." "Yes. Hello? Have you enjoyed it? Have you enjoyed your holiday?" He said, "Great, but who's this woman I've been sleeping with for this last month?" Who is this woman? Who is this woman? I've got a mate, he's obsessed with... Laugh, I nearly passed my fags round. I did. I've got a mate, he's obsessed with poaching. He will poach, willy-nilly in gay abandon, as is his wont. Tell her nothing. And he's there on the banks of the river, and he sees these ducks. They're swimming about on the river, wildly. Webbed feet akimbo. Flip, flip, flip. He thinks, "I'll poach a duck." Swimming around, and this duck perchances to swim near to the bank, as was its wont. And this mate of mine grabbed the duck feverishly, and proceeded to pluck the duck. Yeah. And he's covered in feathers, sat on the bank. And he gazes through the undergrowth and he sees the gamekeeper coming down through the forestry with his gun in his hand. And he gets panic stroke. He's upset. And he throws the duck back into the river and he's sat there on the bank, legs akimbo, covered in feathers. And the gamekeeper comes through the clearing and he sees him standing there covered in feathers, sitting on himself by his own. Running feathers. He said, "You're poaching." He said, "I'm not poaching." He said, "Well, what's the idea of all the feathers?" He said, "That duck there is having a swim and I'm looking after its claws."
2 astronauts went to the moon, couldn't get on. Full moon.
No, this is right, no. There were 2 blokes went to rob a bank. This is true, this. They went to rob this bank, you know, and one went in, see, with gun and lot, and others stopped outside, you know, engine ticking over, you know, ready for fast getaway. And he's there about 5-7 minutes. All of a sudden his mate comes flashing out at the bank, into the car. So he says to his mate, he says, I hope you remembered to wear your silk stocking. He says, of course I did. He says, they'll never recognise my leg anywhere.
Fellow stuck on the M1, the AA come out, he said, your battery's flat. He said, well, what shape should it be?
Hey, hold on. There was a dustbin man, a right nice fella, collecting dustbins, you know. And he come to this house, and this is right, I'm not calling, dustbin were missing. He thought, there's something wrong here. I better knock on the door. So he went and knocked on the door, and he was knocking for 10 minutes, hammering at that door. And all of a sudden, the door opened, a big coloured woman, she was a whopper. Ooh. He said, where's you been? She said, I've been to the toilet. Where's you been?
There's a foreman on a building site, see? There was a knock at the door. And he opened the door, up was a fella standing there about that big, little boy. He went, you? We wouldn't. He said, can I have a job, mister? You said, a job? A job? How old are you, son? He said, I'm 12. He said, we only employ men on this site, son, only employ men. He said, but I'm not strong. He said, strong? I'll tell you what, boy, I'll give you a job, and if you reckon you're strong, we'll try you out now. Look, over there, there's 17 ton of cement. I want that 17 ton of cement shifted from there over to there. He said, all right, mister. He come back 4 minutes later and said, I've done it. What? He said, I've done it. He went, you have done it. Well done, lad. Start tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. He said, come on, brother, have a job. He said, is he as strong as you? He said, yeah. He said, bring him in. Following morning, 8 o'clock, the door burst open. There stood the boy, 12 years old, with his brother, 2 years old. He went, hold up. Hold up. I can't start him. He said, he's as strong as me. He said, strong as you? All right, lad, he's as strong as you. Over at the corner of the building site there, I've got a girder, 17-ton girder. I want that shifted from there to there. They went away. 2 minutes later, the foreman stuck his head out the window like that. And there's a little 2-year-old boy with 400 weight of cement on his shoulder. He went, oi, lad, not the cement, the girder. And the boy said, if you think I'm carrying that girder without a pad, you're well mistaken.
No, there were a coloured fella, you know. I like coloured people, do you? Well, I like you anyway. And he got wed, you know, and he married this white woman, and she was a really nice woman. But things went wrong, you know, it does, doesn't it, you know, at certain times. And so he went to the guidance board, and he said, it's not going so well, like, you know. So, you know, marriage council bloke said, well, how's your relations with her? He said, well, 2 of them tried to eat her last week.
Mother-in-law got drowned last week in the wishing well. Never knew they worked. Listen to this. I took the mother-in-law up Trafalgar Square. And it's all the pigeons flying about, giving it plenty of that, all over the place. And I got there with a camera, she went, take me picture. So I went, hold on. She said, take me picture. I said, hold on. She's got some trap, you know what I mean? And there was this pigeon sitting right on her head, and it went, Wallop. That's what I've done. I was sitting there laughing. She said, don't laugh. Get some paper. I said, I'm stupid, a bird's miles away by now. What's the matter with you?
Two Jewish fellas in a synagogue. One praying here, this one. £75,000 on the polls this week. That's all I want, 75,000. This one. £5, I got this girl in trouble. £5. 75,000 the polls this week, 75,000. £5, I got this girl in trouble. Here's your £5, shut your mouth. Concentrate on me. 75,000.
Sticking at it tonight, might as well, we're sticking at it tonight. Keep going, you swat. Oh, keep going. Priest and a rabbi had a cocktail party, and the priest turned to the rabbi, and he looked at him, all the food was there, and he looked at the rabbi, he said, I wonder, he said, if I'll ever see the day when you eat a ham sandwich. And the rabbi turned to the priest, he said, yes, probably at your wedding.
Little boy said, Dad, it's me tortoise, Dad. It's got blisters on its feet. He said, oh, don't be bloody stupid, son. Tortoises can't have blisters. He said, it has, Daddy, it has. He said, we'll take it to the vet. Off they go to the vet. He said, a tortoise with blisters, impossible. Let me have a look. What? He said, my God, it has. He said, well, don't cry, son. Don't cry. I'll give you another one. He said, there we are. What do you think of that? The kid went, oh, that's better.
All right, Mary, lovely. It's nice to be here. What about Ted Heath? He went to this factory in Birmingham where they make cars, and they're all coming out of the factory for the lunch break. And Ted Heath sees them, and he grabbed one fella. He said, can you tell the difference between Stoke and butter? And this fella said, no. And Ted Heath said, you will next week, you're on 3 days. Funny thing, the Dole, isn't it? When you travel about, you have to do the Dole. I've a mate of mine, right clever lad, thinks, oh, he's, clever lad. Up here. Has it up here. Oh, he's got it all there. Every week, been going to the Dole for 7 years. Every week, goes for his Dole. 3 fellas behind the counter, they're there. Every week, they ask the same questions. And he goes in this week, he's feeling a bit, he thinks, I'm fed up with this. He walked into the Dole, and the first fellow said, name? He said, Joseph. The second fellow said, wife's name? He said, Mary. The third fellow said, where do you live? He said, Bethlehem. And the first fella said, I've got news for you. The 3 wise men have just stopped your door.
The vicar's bike had gone, away, disappeared. The verger said to him, I'll tell you what, Reverend. He said, on Sunday, when you're doing the sermon, why don't you do the 10 Commandments? And when you get to the one, thou shalt not steal, stop. And somebody in the congregation will blush, and your nose got your bite then. So he watched the Reverend, he went all the way through the 10 Commandments, never stopped. He got him afterwards, he said, well, I thought you were going to stop. He said, well, when I got to thou shalt not commit adultery, I remembered where I'd left my bike.
I'll never forget the day I was married. It was like yesterday. You know what a rotten day yesterday was. What a beautiful hotel it was, too. The dining room was so small, all you could eat was fat fish and crumpets. Of course, I brought my wife a beautiful white dress with a printed flower on it, printed F-L-O-U-R flower. That never gets a bloody laugh. I don't know what the hell it's out for. Big American walks into the bar and said, anybody in this here bar can drink 56 pints of porter? I'll pay for the drinks. He says, pardon me, sir. I overheard what you were saying there out loud. 56 pints. I'll be back in 15 minutes. So we get them set up. So we come back in 15 minutes. He drank the 56 pints. So the American said, I'll pay for all Paddy's drinks. But where'd you go to, son? He says, to the pub across the street to see could I do it. Two Irishmen came out of the pub. They were stocious, loaded to the eyeballs, full as monkeys. And they're walking along the railway track, and one said, damn it, Mick, this is a hell of a long flight of stairs. The other fellow said, it's not the stairs that worries me, it's the low banisters.
I'm in this pub, and this fellow come with a dog. I said, that's a nice bulldog. He said, he's not a bulldog, it's a greyhound. He ran into a wall chasing a cat. This dog started barking. 20 minutes it was barking. I said, shut up, and I give it a kick. He shut up. Hush puppies.
It's good that, isn't it? I took the girlfriend out the other day, because I'm married as well, but I asked the wife first, so she said it was all right. And she said, have you noticed anything different about me? I said, no. I said, wait a minute, let me think. It's that new dress, isn't it? She said, no. I said, it's a new coat. She said, no. I said, new shoes. She said, no. I said, I give up. She said, it's his gas mask and wear it. And what about the pilot flying his passengers across the English Channel and they ran out of petrol and he came out of the cockpit with his parachute on and he said, don't worry, I'm going for help. That woman over there, she went... I'm not scared of her. But I'm not going to look over there after. So this pilot said, don't you set me off. This pilot said, he said, what we must do, he said, I'm going to ask for three. He said, I'm going to ask for 3 volunteers to jump out without parachutes because we haven't got enough to go round. So this Englishman stood up first and said, God save the Queen. And he jumped out and he said, I'll see you again. And and then this Frenchman stood up and said, Vive la France. And Auf Wiedersehen, because he spoke German as well. And then this big American stood up and said, remember the Alamo? And he threw a Mexican out.
The comedians tonight were Frank Carson, George Roper, Colin Crompton, Jerry Harris, Dougie Brown, Jimmy Marshall, Jim Bowen, Bernard Manning, Charlie Williams, Mike Reed, and Ken Godwin.
Thank you.